Hello, everyone, and welcome to Raquel Teaches Web Development. My name is Raquel, and today I'm going to be teaching you about how to use the head element to define a web page. All right, so let's first go to the browser. Oh, and I'm sorry, before I get to the browser, I just want to let everyone know that the code that I show in this tutorial is also going to be available on my blog, and the link to that code is in the description for this video below. Okay, now we can get started. So I'm going to go ahead and first switch to the browser. So when we talk about defining a page, what we mean by using the head element for that is that you're going to be providing information to the browser, to the server sometimes, but mostly to the browser that the person is using about the information that you're displaying in the web page. And so that can mean a few things. Sometimes that can refer to things like defining the character set that's going to be used to display the content on the page. Sometimes it's talking about the style sheet that is being linked to. Sometimes it's other information, right? Like about whether or not the screen is going to be set to display content in a certain responsive format, right? So all of those things are defined using the head element in HTML. And so another thing to know is that except for about two things that I can think of, everything that you enter in the head element for an HTML web page is not visible. Okay, so again, it's just giving definition to the browser being used about the information that's going to be displayed, and that helps to ensure that the information is displayed correctly, linked correctly, etc. So the reason I want to show you this first is because right now I have a web page open that I've already created in my code editor, and you don't see anything, right? But when I switch to the code editor, what you're going to see is that I do have some code in there that does define some information about this website, right? And let me try to just zoom this one up just a little bit so you can see. But what you will see is that, and I have something commented out right now, but that's going to be used for example momentarily. But you see that I have some elements in there, like for instance, the meta element, the link element, etc. Right? And I've used the meta element in two different ways. So all of that gives the browser information on how the content of this web page, meaning the stuff that's within the body element, is going to be displayed. But by itself, it does nothing, right? As we see when we switch back to the browser. But one of the elements that I do want to show you is visible is, again, the title element, and another one called a favicon, which is, I have another tutorial for that coming up shortly, but I had to do this one for the head element first. So when we talk about the title of a web page, what we're talking about is the title that appears for the web page up here in the tab. Okay. So right now, what happens is when you don't define a title element on a web page, the title that is displayed in the browser is the name of the document. So as you can see here, what you see as the name of the document, it's head element.html. That happens to be what I named this file for the purposes of this tutorial. So now let's switch back to the code editor, and I'm going to uncomment that title tag that I had in there. Okay. So of course, the way the head element works is that the head element is defined before the body element in an HTML document, right? So you have the opening HTML tag, then you have the opening and closing head tags. Anything that goes in the head element is nested inside of the head element, right? So you see that these are within the head tags. And then after you added anything you've needed to the head tag, you can then go ahead and define your body tag and put any content for the website between the body tags. So today, though, I'm just showing you about the head tag. So I've defined my head tag and I've added things to it. So when you want to define the title of a web page, you use the title element within the head element to do that. So the title element has an opening and closing tag. It's just the word title. And this will now be what's displayed in the tab of the web page when it's viewed in the browser. So I'm going to go ahead and save this change. And then what I'm going to do is switch back to the browser. Oops, it's browser. And refresh that, and let's see what that looks like. So right now it still says head element, which is the name of that HTML document on my computer. So now when I refresh, it should have the title text displayed in there instead. Okay, and you see that it does. Now the title of the page is displayed as how the head element works. Okay, and that's useful because you don't always want your web page to display what the name of the document is necessarily on the server, right? So it may be called index.html, for example, which we'll get into later why it has to be called that. But you may want that to say homepage of, ABC company, or homepage of, somebody's blog. So that's why you want to use the title tag. So that's one of the things that's actually visible that can be set from the head element. The other is a favicon, which is an icon that gets displayed also in the tab of that web page. Okay, so let me show you though a few other things that can be set in the head element to define a web page. So as we see here in the code editor, I've added a few other things. So you'll see that the meta element is something that has several attributes, but I've used two of the attributes here for examples. So in the first one, I'm using meta char set, and I've set the char set to UTF-8. All right, so that's a character set, letting the browser know that that is the character set being used to display the content of the page. The next line, I have the meta element, and I'm using the attribute of name. I'm setting the name to viewport, which is referencing, the visible space to the user. And then I'm using the attribute of content, and I'm setting that to width equals device width, and then initial scale is 1. That is what allows the content of the page to be zoomable by a user, and it makes it responsive. So that's a little bit more of an advanced topic when it comes to display of content in CSS. But for right now, you should know that when you set that, it will make your web page much more usable to people, especially when they're using them on smaller devices like a phone. Okay, so that's one of the other elements. And there are several elements that can be used in the head element to define a web page, but these are just for today's example. The next element, which is a very common element that you'll see as a web developer, is the link element, okay? And one of the most common ways you'll see it used is to link a style sheet. A style sheet is a separate document used in web development to give style to a web page, meaning that it helps define colors, fonts, spacing, sizes, images, corners, shadows, etc., right? So this is one of the most basic ways to link a style sheet to an HTML page, by using the link element within the head element. And again, none of this stuff is doing anything until I start to add content, and then that content gets affected by what's defined in the head element. So that's what you have to know about the head element, that its primary use is to define information about a web page. And it does have two elements that are visible when you set them in there, one of them being the title, another one is a favicon. There may be others, but those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head at the moment. All right, but that's it. It's not that complicated, but it is something that is needed in web development. And you'll notice that as you start to watch my playlists on other languages, for example, like PHP and JavaScript, you may have to set certain things in the head element as well. When you work in a CMS like WordPress, WordPress does have head templates that you can define as well that work in the same way as the head element does in HTML. So that's how it works. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and click the like button. If you know anyone that would find this video helpful, please go ahead and share this with them by using the link underneath this video. And if you would like to be notified of future videos as they're added to this channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's free. Okay, so thanks for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I appreciate you stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your day and be blessed. Have a good one. Bye-bye.